Hello, I'm Vanessa Stoikov and welcome back to the Secrets of the Money Masters. Today I'm paying a visit to rugby star Bernhard Foley, who seems to be a winner in money as much as he is in the game. I'm here to diagnose Bernhard about what he needs to unlearn about money. Along the way, he'll be assigned his own money master from Orbis Investments' Edward Blaine and a financial advisor to really kickstart his entire financial makeover.
I grew up in a big family of 5 brothers and sisters and grew up out in the Hills District. Our parents just pushed us into going to anything, to keep trying your hand, chancing your hand at anything that you liked or enjoyed and keep pushing yourself and exploring boundaries. Dad encouraged us to do all sports. I suppose he was my biggest influence in putting me into rugby, and he'd do the pickups and the call-outs to make sure we had a team to play the next day, and he pushed me in and probably coached from my under-6s team through to under-16s. Rugby, it was always a dream of mine to play for the Wallabies or be a footballer, but it was nothing I ever thought I'd achieve. I suppose I was a bit of a late bloomer in terms of joining the rep sides and joining the state side and then progressing into the Wallabies. I still think I've got a lot to learn as well. Growing up, I was a bit of a saver, I think. If I earned money in my sort of part-time jobs or anything, it wasn't something I'd go out and spend straight away. I'd probably hold on to because I'd never had a really regular job or a consistent income. So, I was probably a bit on the tighter side. So Dad was a lawyer, my mum was a school teacher. We always felt that money probably wasn't in abundance growing up, so there were things we'd go, we went without, or from a big family, a lot of things get handed down, so you get a lot of second-hand clothes. Probably wasn't something that we spoke about a lot. It was more, I suppose, creating memories than money. Yeah, I think there's a lot of parallels in terms of that, having a financial plan and having a football plan, that you believe in it, that you challenge it, that you understand why you're doing things, and then you fully commit. You go into these plans and make sure that you've set your goals along the way, you're proactive, you're reassessing, and at the end of the day, if you put the hard work in and keep achieving, you're going to be successful and you're going to get those goals.
Bernhard's had some hesitation making long-term investments like property because of the nature of his career. I'll be interested to find out more about what's held him back on these fronts. Tell me, growing up, you said you're one of 6 kids. Mm-hmm. Well, how did you start to learn about money growing up? Talk to me about the conversation or not in your household.
Yeah, I suppose Dad always worked for himself as well. So, I don't say we were rich or it was the cash flow, but it was something that we were aware of growing up. I think to support 6 kids is a pretty tough challenge, especially financially. So for us, we weren't well off, but we enjoyed it. I think all the kids were able or given the opportunities to pursue whatever interests they had. So for me, I don't think money was a big issue or a topic that we spoke about. So it's probably not somewhere I really learnt a lot of.
Okay, that's an interesting insight because you're one of the only athletes we have on the show that have invested a lot in equities, which is a very liquid asset class. You can get your money at call rather than sell a house. There's a process to go through before you can. So do you think that might have been a bit of a reaction to seeing your dad so heavily, burdened is maybe the wrong word, but...
I think it's definitely a mixture of things. I suppose with rugby and the unknowns, I suppose we only live on short-term contracts and what we're going to be doing in the future is so unknown. So for me, the sort of long-term assets of buying a house was probably not the priority to start with, but it's something that's definitely interested me and something I want to sort of explore.
It's pretty clear that Bernhard is no stranger to hard work and he's willing to put in to get a result. But is he ready to take a longer-term view?
I'm very fortunate to be a professional rugby player, to get to do what was a dream of mine as a kid. I get to do every day, but I suppose it is not all the glitz and glamour that we see. There's a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifices or choices we have to make to get where we are, and that probably makes it all as enjoyable. Or when you work together in a team for so long and you go through all these experiences, that when it pays off, it is very rewarding.
Bernhard's got some regrets about not getting into the property market when prices were lower, and he'll have to learn some new techniques to look at time differently so that he capitalises on his money moving forward. What do you worry about? What keeps you up at night? Everyone's got things they wake up at 3 a.m. and worry about. What do you worry about?
I definitely think long term, as I said, for football, it's only a short period of your life, and there is one day where I'm not going to be able to do it. I suppose it's planning and putting yourself in the right position so that when that day comes around that you're best prepared to handle whatever comes next. So it's making sure I live the most now and get the most out of my rugby, that when that next chapter opens, that I'm, I suppose, prepared for it, or I've definitely put things in place so I can that transition can be seamless.
Okay, so you have to finish this sentence for me. My biggest regret around money is?
Probably not getting into property when I first should have.
What do you mean by should have?
Well, I think, you know, you always look at property prices from now to compared to the old days, and if you're able to buy, I suppose it's something that you're always juggling, the should-haves, the could-haves.
I've had Bernhard read my book and do the quiz on my website. And as I thought, if Bernhard needs to unlearn anything, it's time and how he views it to really master his money. I'll be assigning him his very own financial advisor who can go through a step-by-step plan with him to see how he can enter the property market and continue building his wealth post his rugby career. Next time, Money Master Edward Blaine of Orbis Investments shares the secrets to mastering money. Bernhard will also meet his new financial advisor who'll walk him through investing for the long term.
Keep saving, keep investing, keep looking to the long term, keep trying to avoid panicking in the bad times and putting too much money in the good times. And you'll wake up in 50 years' time with more money than you know what to do with, having done very little to get there.
Today we're working with Wallaby star Bernhard Foley to nail down what he needs to be financially free. And joining me on the panel is Connie McKeesh, the CEO of OneView, Debbie Blakey, my regular expert, the CEO of Hester, and William Burkett, who's from Mercer. Well, Bernhard's on the money, right? Bernhard has a plan, he's a very disciplined young man, he's a lot of goals, but at the end of the day, he still didn't know the right plan to make sure that he's financially free. And, you know, he's got a lot of advantages. Connie, a lot of it's around having a story, listening to your own story, developing out your own story from a young age around money. You've got a very good one. You're very much a self-made woman who's incredibly financially secure now, but wasn't always the case, grew up on a farm. Tell me your story around how you grew to be an investor.
It was an accident. I was at university, and like most university students, I was looking for how to travel through Europe on $10 a day. And when I was looking at the book, there was this wonderful book beside it called Financial Freedom on $5 a day. And I said, well, that's even cheaper. So I took the book and I had a look at it, and I started to learn about things like compound interest and dollar cost averaging. And I was waitressing at the time to get myself through university. And I started to save $25 a week and put it away. And one of the things I noticed in Bernhard's story is that the long term, people get very caught up in short-termism, and dollar cost averaging got me through that, and I didn't pay attention to what the markets were doing or anything else, and the rest really looked after itself.
Well, pretty amazing story, and the power of starting early, right? I mean, Debbie, when you've got a super fund, super's doing it for you, it's taking out the money, it's investing it, you don't have to worry. Why do you think more Australians aren't doing that outside of their super, or putting more into their super than the 9.5%?
I think it can feel very daunting. And, you know, Connie, that's such a great story of, you know, something that can change your life, a really good book, or having a good coach or a mentor, somebody who can give you input. And I think the reasons people don't do that, firstly, they sometimes think, well, I don't have enough. $25 a month isn't enough. And they just don't believe that it'll actually make a difference in the long term. But also possibly, you know, it's daunting. They're paralyzed by fear. And it's difficult sometimes to think through that and actually embrace money and think how you can make it work for you.
It's true. Will, do you think people fear what they don't understand?
I do, and I think more education and information availability, as well as the ability to be able to seek advice from other experts who have the experience. But then there's a paradox. Sometimes people get caught up in booms and they invest in a stock market share that they don't understand, or cryptocurrencies that they don't understand. So it's also making sure you know what you're going to invest in as well.
Cryptocurrency, it sounds sexy, right? But does anyone ever understand that at all?
No, not at all. Avoid it. Stay away.
Good to know that no one else understands it either, and Mercer know a hell of a lot more than me. So I'm going to ask you all a question, because everyone's sitting at home going, look, I'm not a Wallaby star, I'm not Bernhard Foley earning the big money he's earning, and Connie said she started with, what, $25 a week. But what is one thing that the people at home can do today to change their financial future? Debbie, I'll start with you.
Well, from a super point of view, we think of it as the 3 C's. So consolidate if you have multiple accounts, contribute because 9.5% isn't enough, and check. Check your super, check your insurance, keep an eye on it, engage with it.
Good advice. Will, what do you think?
I'd like to say start now. Don't put it off, misunderstanding the importance of saving through your life, so start now.
And not just putting it in a bank account, right? Because that's what most people think saving is.
Yeah, no, putting it into assets that are going to work for you and benefiting from the compounding of the asset valuation or the income you derive from it.
Okay.
Yep.
And Connie, what's your tip?
Well, my analogy is like sports stars and what I do every morning. I hate getting up at 5, but I swing my legs out of bed, and once I'm up, you can start going. And to Debbie's point, it's daunting. But if you start, you'll find that you get into a regular pattern and it's not so scary anymore. So I agree with Will, just start.
Bernhard had a share portfolio, quite a big one actually, and you know, Rod, his financial planner, said he's to be commended for that. He has got a lot of discipline. But he didn't have much in the way of global equities. Most of it was in Australia, and this is something we find quite often. Will, I'll start with you first. Why are Australians obsessed with A, buying a house, and B, investing in Australia when we're 3% of the global stock market?
Because it's what you know. You know the names of the banks or a BHP, but you don't know a lot of the stocks that are based in the US or the UK, for example. So it's what's here and now. It's maybe what you talk about with your friends, which is Australian shares. But as you said, it's only 3% of the global stock markets, and there's the importance of diversification so that your the valuation swings is dampened. It's not quite as large. So do diversify.
Okay, and Connie, OneView provides the technology to allow people to access investments from all over the world. How can we get this message across to people?
Look, I think we've overcomplicated it. To Will's point, people think about investing and buying shares, and because they don't know how to access overseas markets, but you can do it through other instruments. You can do it through ETFs, you can do it through unit trusts, you can do it through super fund investments in their own right. There's lots of different ways to access global markets, and it's very exciting because there's sectors that are represented overseas that have no kind of exposure at all in Australia. So I'd encourage people to look at ways of investing internationally.
Debbie, how do you go about, I mean, big multi-billion-dollar super fund, how do you go about educating members who are nurses and, I mean, good people who are doing regular jobs? The last thing they're thinking about is, I must buy an ETF in global investing. But how do you go about educating them?
I think to Connie's point, it's about keeping it simple and really relating to them in their language, and you know, building that trust that they will turn to us and understand that they can get advice, they can get help, they can get support. And so engagement's a huge part of our focus, and really wanting to make it easy for people. You know, dealing with your super fund, engaging with your super fund should be so easy. It should be as easy as buying things online. We shouldn't make it difficult for them. So it's a huge challenge for us, and we spend an enormous amount of time and investment on doing that.
And do you think people are starting to get the message? Do you see an improvement in engagement?
Our engagement has increased by 30% in a year.
Really?
It's incredible, yes.
That's
you know, more and more members going online. We've encouraged members to go online, keep an eye on your super, made it easy for them, done campaigns around it, so 30% increase in 1 year.
Sounds like self-service, was it? A lot of self-service.
A lot of
taking control, yeah.
Correct, yes.
Well, imagine what can be done in the next 5 if you've got 30% in one.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yes.
Well, I think we'd all agree that Bernhard's most likely going to make all his financial dreams come true. He's a young man with a lot of discipline, and he's good to watch on the sporting field as well. Thank you, my experts, Debbie Blakey, Will Burkett, Connie McKeish, for joining me and helping me solve Bernhard's issues.